Two children vanish without a trace on a luxury cruise ship to Alaska. Their cabin door was locked from the inside. Security cameras show them entering, but never leaving. 9 months later, a small pink suitcase washes up on a distant shore. Inside, a message written in strange ink. A mother who never stopped searching. A father who lost hope. But what really happened that night on the Ocean Star? What secrets lie beneath the waves? And why do fishermen report seeing children swimming? In waters too cold for any human to survive? Some mysteries aren't meant to be solved. Some transformations can't be reversed. The truth waits in the depths. Liv Dawson's heart skipped a beat when she slid the keycard into the twins' cabin door. Something felt wrong. The hallway was too quiet. No giggles leaked from under the door. No thumping of feet or squeals of laughter. "Mira? Finn?" she called, pushing the door open. The cabin lights glowed softly over empty beds. The television hummed quietly, playing cartoons to no one. Kids? Theo moved past her, checking the small bathroom. They're probably hiding. But Liv knew better. The twins never hid without giggling, giving themselves away. The room held the heavy silence of emptiness. Their swimsuits are hung up. She pointed to the blue and pink suits dripping over the shower rod. They came back from swimming. Her voice sounded strange to her own ears. Theo grabbed the ship's phone. "Security, please." Liv moved through the cabin like a sleepwalker, touching the twins' things. Mira's book lay open on her bed, a dolphin bookmark keeping her place. Finn's action figures stood arranged in a battle scene on the desk. Their shoes were lined up by the door, deck sandals missing, but their sneakers and dress shoes still there. Within minutes, security officers crowded the small cabin. "When did you last see your children?" asked Officer Rivera, her notepad ready. "At dinner," Theo answered. "They wanted to swim before bedtime. We walked them back here at 7:30 to change. They know the way to the pool. They've been going by themselves. All week. They're 11, Liv added quickly. They're not little kids. They're good swimmers." The captain arrived as security began reviewing hallway camera footage on a tablet. His face was grave. "Here they are returning from the pool at 8:47 p.m., the security officer said, turning the tablet so they could see. There were Mira and Finn, hair wet, towels around their shoulders, walking down the hallway to their cabin. "That's over 2 hours ago," Liv whispered. "And no footage of them leaving?" the captain asked. The security officer shook his head. "Nothing. They entered the cabin and never came out." The ship came alive with activity. Security guards searched every corner of the massive vessel while announcements called for Mira and Finn Dawson to please report to guest services. "They couldn't have just vanished," Theo kept saying as they waited in the ship's security office. "There must be an explanation." But by midnight, no explanation had appeared. No twins, either. "The ship will dock at Prince Rupert in 2 hours," the captain informed them. "Local police and Coast Guard have been notified." "Coast Guard?" Liv's voice broke. "You think they went overboard?" "We're exploring every possibility, Mrs. Dawson," he replied carefully. The balcony door to their cabin was unlocked. "But they were inside!" Theo shouted. "The cameras show them going in." Liv sat frozen, imagining her children somehow falling into the cold, dark Alaskan waters. No, it didn't make sense. Someone must have taken them. By morning, the Ocean Star had docked. Passengers gathered on decks, watching police board the ship. Some took photos. Liv wanted to scream at them. Canadian police interviewed the cabin stewards, the pool attendants, the children's club staff. "Someone must have seen something," the detective in charge repeated. In daylight, Liv studied the twins' cabin again. Their toothbrushes stood in the holder. Their pajamas lay folded on their pillows where the turned-down service had left them. Mira's stuffed otter sat untouched on her bed. They never got ready for bed, she realized. After swimming, they came back, hung up their suits, and then… what? The security footage showed nothing. No one entering their cabin after them. The balcony camera showed no movement. It was as if Mira and Finn had simply dissolved into air. As the ship emptied of passengers, Liv found herself staring at the last footage of her children. Finn was laughing about something, poking his sister's arm. Mira was rolling her eyes, but smiling. Their wet hair dripped onto their shoulders. They looked happy. Normal. They had no idea they had less than a minute left of their regular lives. The twins entered their cabin. The door closed behind them. And then… nothing. "We'll find them," Theo kept promising, though his voice grew less certain each time. But as the search expanded through the ship and into the surrounding waters, as news helicopters circled overhead and the story hit headlines, Liv felt a cold certainty taking root. Someone had taken her children. Someone who knew how to avoid the cameras, how to move invisibly through a ship carrying 3,000 people. As she watched divers searching the waters below the ship's hull, a thought struck her with terrible clarity. Whoever took Mira and Finn was still out there. And the only person who seemed to truly believe they hadn't simply fallen overboard was her. "I will find you," she whispered, as if her children might somehow hear her. "Whatever happened, wherever you are, I promise I will find you." She didn't know then how long that promise would take to fulfill, or what impossible truths awaited at the end of her search. 3 days passed in a blur of police interviews, search teams, and news reporters. Liv and Theo barely slept, jumping at every phone call, every knock on their hotel room door. Each time hoping, each time disappointed. "We've interviewed everyone on the ship," Detective Mercer told them on the morning of the 4th day. His eyes were ringed with dark circles. "No one saw anything unusual involving your children after they left the pool area." "That's impossible," Liv insisted. "2 children don't just vanish. Someone must have seen something." The detective hesitated. "We did find something in your daughter's belongings that might be helpful." He showed them a small purple notebook. They hadn't noticed before. The cover read "Weird Things" in Mira's neat handwriting. "It seems your daughter liked to write down things she found strange or suspicious," Mercer explained. Liv flipped through the pages with trembling hands. Most entries were innocent observations that only an 11-year-old would find weird. A lady with 7 rings on one hand. A man who ate dessert before his main course. A bird that followed their ship for 3 days straight. Then, 3 days before they disappeared, Mira had written, "Kitchen man with sad eyes watches us at the Fihao pool again. Finn says I'm imagining it, but I'm not." "Have you identified this person?" Theo asked sharply. "We believe so," Mercer nodded. "Otto Mills works in the galley. He admits to taking breaks near the pool area, but denies paying special attention to any children." Later that day, they watched through one-way glass as police questioned a thin man with hollow cheeks and downcast eyes. Otto Mills answered every question directly, expressing shock at the twins' disappearance. He had an alibi for the evening they vanished. He'd been working in the kitchen, confirmed by multiple witnesses. "I don't like him," Liv said. "Neither do I," Detective Mercer admitted. "But disliking someone isn't evidence." That night, in their hotel room overlooking the harbor where the Ocean Star had been detained, Liv finally collapsed into exhausted sleep. In her dreams, she heard Mira and Finn whispering, Their voices seemed to come from somewhere far away, like they were speaking through water. "Mom!" they called. "Mom, we're here!" She jerked awake at 3:17 M, heart pounding. The room was dark, except for the red glow of the alarm clock. Something felt different, wrong. Liv switched on the bedside lamp. Theo grumbled in his sleep, but didn't wake. That's when she saw them. Wet footprints on the hotel room floor. Small footprints, like a child's. "Theo!" she gasped, shaking him awake. "Look!" But by the time Theo fumbled for his glasses, the footprints were already fading, water evaporating into nothing on the carpet. "You were dreaming," Theo said gently, though his voice held a note of worry. "You need to sleep." But Liv couldn't shake the feeling that her children had been there, somehow, trying to reach her. The next morning, they met with the search coordinator, who spread a map across the table. "We've covered the entire ship, every cabin, every storage area, every maintenance tunnel," he explained. "Coast Guard has searched 20 nautical miles in all directions. We've interviewed every passenger and crew member." "And nothing," Theo said flatly. "There was one odd report," the coordinator admitted reluctantly. "A night watchman claimed he heard children laughing near the bow at around 2 a.m. the night before last. But when he investigated, he found nothing." Liv's heart jumped. "That matches the security log, remember? There was a motion alert near the forward cargo area, but when security checked, they found nothing." Detective Mercer sighed. "Mrs. Dawson, we've checked that area thoroughly 3 times. But something told Liv they were missing something. She convinced them to check once more. This time, she went along." The forward cargo hold was cold and dimly lit. Crates and luggage were secured with heavy straps. Nothing seemed out of place. Until Liv spotted it, a small plastic dolphin keychain caught between 2 crates. Mira's keychain that had hung from her backpack. "They were here," she whispered. The discovery sparked a new, intense search of the area. They found nothing else. That evening, as Liv stood at the hotel window watching the sunset paint the harbor in shades of orange and pink, her phone rang. "Mrs. Dawson, this is Officer Rivera, from the ship. I was reviewing the security footage again and noticed something strange. The night your children disappeared, there's a moment where the hallway camera outside their room flickers, just for a second. But when the image returns, there's a shadow moving. It might be nothing, but I thought you should know." Liv clutched the phone. "Send me the footage. Now." When the video arrived, she and Theo huddled over her phone, watching the grainy security footage. The corridor outside the twins' cabin, empty. Then a brief flicker, a moment of static. And there. Was that a shadow sliding along the wall, or just a trick of the light? "It could be anything," Theo said, but his voice held a new tension. "Or anyone," Liv whispered. "Someone who knew how to tamper with the cameras." As darkness fell over the harbor, Liv held Mira's toy dolphin keychain in her palm. Somewhere out there, her children were trying to reach her. She was sure of it now. She just had to learn how to hear what they were trying to tell her. 2 weeks passed. The search for Mira and Finn Dawson had expanded beyond the ship and harbor to include miles of Alaskan coastline. Their photos appeared on news stations worldwide. The cruise line offered a $100,000 reward for information. Each day brought new sightings from around the world. A waitress in Seattle thought she served the twins breakfast. A bus driver in Vancouver was certain they had ridden his route. None of the leads went anywhere. The theories grew wilder. Internet detectives claimed the twins had jumped overboard, on a dare. Others insisted they had been kidnapped by a shadowy crew member. Some suggested they had crawled into the ship's ventilation system and become trapped. Theo stopped sleeping. Dark shadows formed under his eyes. He barely spoke anymore, nodding silently as detectives delivered daily reports of no progress. "We have to go home eventually," he told Liv one rainy morning as they sat in their hotel room, untouched breakfast growing cold between them. "My leave from work ends next week." "Then go," Liv said. "I'm staying." "For how long? Forever?" "They're gone, Liv." His voice cracked. "Our children are gone." "You don't know that. It's been 2 weeks. If they were—" He couldn't finish the sentence. "If they were alive, we would have found them by now." Liv completed his thought. "Is that what you were going to say?" Theo's silence was answer enough. That afternoon, while Theo met with the detective handling their case, Liv walked to the harbor. The Ocean Star had finally been cleared to continue its cruise route 3 days earlier. The police investigation was gradually shifting from rescue to recovery. Everyone was giving up. A small sign caught her eye. "Coastal Tours. See Alaska from the water." On impulse, she went inside the cramped office. An hour later, she had rented a small motorboat and hired a local guide for the next 2 weeks. "I want to retrace the ship's path," she explained to the bewildered boat owner. "Every inch of coastline where my children might be." The owner, a weathered man named Pete, looked at her with pity but took her money. When she told Theo her plan that evening, he stared at her in disbelief. "This is madness, Liv. You're not a search and rescue expert. The Coast Guard has already covered that route." "Maybe they missed something," she insisted. "I can't just sit in this hotel room anymore while my babies are out there somewhere." 2 days later, Theo boarded a plane back to Seattle, promising to return on weekends. Adrien watched his plane take off, feeling both guilty and relieved. His grief was a heavy weight she couldn't carry along with her own. She moved to a smaller hotel near the harbor and began her own search, heading out each morning with her guide, Riley, a quiet college student who needed money for tuition. They followed the cruise ship's route, scanning the shoreline through binoculars, stopping at small fishing villages to show the twins photos. Most people had already seen them on the news. They offered sympathetic looks, but no new information. 1 week into her search, a storm forced them to take shelter in a tiny coastal village called Cedar Cove. While Riley secured the boat, Livu et found the only cafe open. An old woman sat alone by the window, weaving what looked like a fishing net with gnarled fingers. She looked up when Liv entered, her cloudy eyes somehow seeing straight through her. "You're the mother of the lost twins," she said. It wasn't a question. Liv nodded, too tired to be surprised. "I'm Elora," the woman said. "Sit." Liv sat across from her, wrapping cold fingers around a mug of coffee the server brought without being asked. "Everyone thinks they're dead," Liv said quietly. Elora's fingers never stopped weaving. "What do you think?" I think they're trying to tell me something. I hear them in my dreams. I've seen footprints." Instead of dismissing her as crazy, Elora nodded. "Sometimes the sea keeps secrets," she said, "but the water always whispers the truth." "What does that mean?" "It means listen. Not with your ears." Elora touched her chest. "With this." That night, as the storm raged outside her rented cabin, Liv stood at the window watching lightning illuminate the churning sea. Rain lashed against the glass, creating streams that distorted her view of the water. Through these watery ribbons, something caught her eye. Movement in the water. Not the chaotic chop of storm waves, but deliberate movement. Swimming. She grabbed a flashlight and ran outside, ignoring the stinging rain and howling wind. At the edge of the water, she shined her light at the spot where she'd seen the movement. For a split second, she saw them, two small figures in the distance, heads bobbing above the surface. One raised an arm, as if waving. "Mira! Finn!" she screamed over the storm. She splashed into the freezing water, but by the time she was knee-deep, the beam of her flashlight showed nothing but angry waves. The figures were gone, if they had ever been there at all. Riley found her there 10 minutes later, soaking wet and shivering, still scanning the horizon with desperate eyes. "You need to come inside," he urged, guiding her back to the cabin. "You'll catch pneumonia." "I saw them," she insisted through chattering teeth. "They were swimming." Riley said nothing as he wrapped a blanket around her shoulders, but she saw the look in his eyes. The same look Theo had given her before he left. The same look the detectives gave her now when she called with new theories. Everyone thought she was falling apart, seeing things that weren't there because she couldn't accept the truth. But as she lay in bed that night, listening to the storm, Liv heard it again. Whispers beneath the howl of the wind, children's voices calling her name, distorted as if coming from underwater. She was not crazy. Her children were out there. And somehow, against all logic, against everything she had ever believed about the world, they were in the water. Now, she just had to make someone believe her. 3 months after the twins disappeared, Liv returned to Seattle. She hadn't wanted to leave Alaska, but she had run out of money and options. The small boat searches had yielded nothing concrete, just more whispers in the night and glimpses of movement in the water that no one else ever saw. Theo met her at the airport with dark circles under his eyes and 3 months of grief etched into his face. He had lost weight. "Welcome home," he said simply, taking her small suitcase. Home felt wrong. The twins' bedrooms remained exactly as they had left them before the cruise. Bright blue walls in Finn's room, purple galaxy patterns on Mira's ceiling, school books still stacked on desks, soccer cleats by the door. Liv avoided these rooms. She spent her days in the small home office, walls covered with maps of the Alaskan coastline, printouts of ocean currents, and every scrap of information about the ocean star she could find. Theo tried to coax her back to her job teaching 3rd grade. "It might help to have a routine," he suggested carefully. But Liv couldn't imagine standing in front of a classroom of children the same age as her own. Then, one ordinary Tuesday morning as Liv was making coffee, her phone buzzed with a notification. Someone had tagged Mira's inactive Instagram account in a post. With trembling fingers, Liv opened the app. The post contained nothing but a string of numbers: 58, 3376 degree N, 134.5200 degree W. "What is this?" she whispered, heart racing. She didn't recognize the account that had posted it, just a blank profile with the username below the surface. The account had been created that day and had no other posts or followers. Over the next 3 hours, 2 more posts appeared, tagging both twins' accounts. More coordinates and strange phrases. "The current carries voices," and "We see differently now." Liv called Detective Mercer, who still checked in weekly. "It's probably a cruel prank," he said, after she forwarded the posts. "Unfortunately, high-profile missing persons cases attract this kind of attention." "But what if it's not?" Liv insisted. "What if they're trying to communicate? Mrs. Dawson, please don't get your hopes up. We'll trace the account, but these posts likely came from someone seeking attention." Theo agreed with the detective. "Trolls," he said bitterly. "People with nothing better to do than torment grieving parents." But Liv couldn't let it go. She plotted the coordinates on her maps. All were in the ocean, forming a trail that followed the Alaska Current from the spot where the ship had been when the twins disappeared. The FBI tech team couldn't trace the source of the posts. The account had been created using public Wi-Fi and a burner email. Whoever was behind it knew how to cover their tracks. A week later, another post appeared. An image of what looked like an underwater cave with the caption, "Home Below." That same day, Liv received a call from a detective in the Juneau Police Department. "Mrs. Dawson, we've had 3 separate reports in the past month of fishermen spotting what they described as children swimming far from shore near Admiralty Island. When the fishermen approached, the children disappeared underwater." Liv's hands shook so badly she nearly dropped the phone. "Are they looking? Is the Coast Guard searching that area?" "Ma'am, these sightings, they're not credible. One fisherman reported the children were swimming in water too cold for survival, with no signs of hypothermia. Another claimed they vanished underwater for over 10 minutes before resurfacing." "I'm coming there," Liv said immediately. "I need to speak with these witnesses." Theo exploded when she told him her plans. "This is madness. You're chasing ghosts." "Liv!" "They're not ghosts," she whispered. "There's something else, something different. Do you hear yourself? Our children didn't turn into mermaids. They're gone." He slammed his fist against the wall, then crumpled, sliding down to sit on the floor. "I can't keep watching you do this to yourself." 3 days later, Liv was on a plane to Juneau while Theo remained in Seattle. The distance between them now measured in more than just miles. She met with each fisherman who had reported the sightings. Old Man Garrick had seen them near dawn. 2 young'uns swimming like otters, too far out for regular kids. Miguel Santos had spotted them at dusk, playing in the waves, diving for minutes at a time, impossible things. Woodrow James had seen them in a storm. Thought they were seals until they waved at my boat. None of the men knew each other. All 3 described the same thing. Children who moved through water as if born to it, who could stay submerged far too long, who vanished when approached. Liv rented a small cabin on the shore near the sighting locations. Each night, she sat on the beach, watching. Each morning, she searched the coastline. On the 7th day, she found something. Tiny footprints leading from the water to a storage shed at a weather monitoring station half a mile up the coast. Security. Footage from the station showed blurry figures moving with unusual speed at 3:14 a.m. The station manager reported sealed packages of cookies missing, the exact brand the twins had always favored. "Could be raccoons," the manager suggested, not meeting Liv's eyes. "Camera's not great at night." "Raccoons don't have footprints like these," Liv pointed to the small damp marks. "And they don't eat only chocolate chip cookies while leaving. Everything else untouched." The manager called in a wildlife expert who examined the footprints before they dried. "These aren't animal prints," she confirmed. "They're human, mostly." "Mostly?" Liv pressed. The expert looked uncomfortable. "There's a slight webbing pattern between the toes and fingers in these prints, and the handprints show elongated palms. It's probably just how they pressed into the mud, but..." When the prints dried, Liv took photos and sent them to Theo, along with the security footage screenshots. His response was brief. "Please come home. Please get help." But later that day, another post appeared on the mysterious Instagram account, a picture of the weather station's cookie wrapper floating in water. The caption read, "Still Finn's favorite." Liv showed the post to Detective Mercer, who finally seemed disturbed. "I'll send a forensic team to examine those prints," he promised. That night, as Liv sat on her cabin porch watching the moonlight shimmer on the water, she heard it again. Laughter, distant and distorted, carried on the breeze. "I know you're out there," she called softly. "I know you're trying to tell me something. I'm listening now, I believe." As if in answer, two splashes broke the still surface of the water far offshore, followed by what sounded like children's voices calling back. "Mom, find us. We're changing." The words were barely audible, could have been just the sound of waves against rocks. But Liv knew better. Her children were alive. But whatever had happened on that cruise ship had transformed them into something science couldn't explain, and she was the only one who believed it. Until the forensic results came back. "The DNA in those footprints matches your children," Detective Mercer said over the phone, his voice strained with disbelief. "But there are anomalies the lab can't explain." For the first time in months, Liv felt vindication rather than frustration. "What kind of anomalies?" "They're saying the skin cells show signs of adaptation to aquatic environments, extra proteins that help resist cold, changes to the epidermis. They want more samples." Liv sent the detective's report to Theo, who finally agreed to fly to Alaska. He arrived 2 days later, hollow-eyed, but with a new energy. "I'm sorry I didn't believe you," he said, hugging her tightly at the Juneau airport. "I still don't understand what's happening, but DNA doesn't lie." Together, they met with marine biologists, search teams, and local experts. They plotted all the sightings and coordinates from the mysterious social media posts on a map. "Everything points to this region," Theo said, circling an area near an uninhabited island 15 miles offshore. "But what's there?" An elderly fisherman named Takan overheard them talking in a local cafe and approached their table. "That island has underwater caves," he said, tapping a gnarled finger on their map. "Old stories say they go deep, connecting to tunnels beneath the sea floor." "Have you been there?" Liv asked eagerly. The old man shook his head. "Bad waters, strange currents. Boats get pulled down if they get too close." Liv and Theo exchanged looks. This was the first they'd heard of underwater caves. It took 3 days to find someone willing to take them near the island. A young guide named Rowan, who had studied marine geology, agreed to help, though he warned the area was dangerous. "Those caves are partly unexplored," he explained as his boat cut through the morning fog. "The few divers who've attempted to map them report unusual currents and disorientation." They anchored 100 yards from the rocky shore. The island was little more than a jagged outcrop of stone rising from the sea, uninhabited and forbidding. Rowan prepared scuba gear. "I'll go first to check conditions. The cave entrance is about 30 feet down." Liv watched anxiously as Rowan disappeared beneath the waves. 20 minutes later, he surfaced, his expression troubled. "There's something you need to see," he said. "But it's strange. Very strange." Theo volunteered to dive next, while Liv stayed behind. Her swimming skills weren't strong enough for cave diving. An hour later, Theo and Rowan returned to the boat. Theo's face was ashen. "Liv," he whispered, "there's a cave down there with air pockets. And inside, we found things." From his dive bag, he pulled out a plastic bag containing a sodden bracelet. The friendship bracelet Mira had made at summer camp last year. Liv's hands trembled as she touched it. "Where exactly?" "There's a large cave about 50 feet in," Rowan explained. "Half submerged, on a rock shelf above the waterline. We found this bracelet, a damaged comic book page, and some unusual markings carved into the stone wall." "Markings?" Liv asked. Theo showed her photos on his waterproof camera. The rock wall had crude drawings, that looked like a child had carved them. Wavy lines representing water, and what appeared to be two stick figures with elongated limbs. "There's more," Rowan said reluctantly. "The cave, it's not natural. Parts of it show signs of being shaped, hollowed out. And there are smaller tunnels leading deeper that are too narrow for adults, but the perfect size for children. We need to go back down with better equipment," Theo insisted. "Cameras, lights, maybe sonar." Rowan looked uncomfortable. "Before we do that, there's something you should know about these waters." As their boat rocked gently on the waves, Rowan told them a story he'd learned from his grandmother, who was native to the region. There's an old legend about children who were taken by the sea. The story says they didn't drown, but became something else. The elders called them sea children. They said when certain children heard the ocean's call, they would change, becoming creatures who could breathe underwater and swim to the deepest parts of the ocean. "That's just a story," Theo said, but his voice lacked conviction. "Maybe," Rowan acknowledged, "but my grandmother warned us never to swim alone in these waters. She said the sea children sometimes take other children to join them." Liv remembered Elora's words. "Sometimes the sea keeps secrets, but the water always whispers the truth." They returned to shore as darkness fell, planning to come back the next day with better equipment. That night, they stayed at a small inn near the harbor. Liv couldn't sleep. At midnight, drawn by some instinct she couldn't explain, she walked down to the shore. The full moon cast a silver path across the water. As she stood watching the gentle waves, something caught her eye. Movement on the rocks offshore. She squinted, trying to see more clearly in the moonlight. There, sitting on the rocks, about 30 yards out, were two small figures. Even at a distance, she recognized them instantly. Mira and Finn. "Theo!" she screamed, fumbling for her phone to call him at the inn. But she couldn't tear her eyes away from her children, afraid they would vanish if she looked away even for a second. The twins remained on the rocks, watching her. They didn't wave or call out. They simply sat, moonlight gleaming on their wet skin. Liv waded into the water, not caring about the cold. "Mira! Finn!" she called. At the sound of their names, both children slipped into the water with barely a splash. By the time Liv was knee-deep in the freezing sea, they had disappeared. Theo arrived minutes later, having run the whole way from the inn. "They were here," Liv told him, teeth chattering as he wrapped his jacket around her shoulders. "Sitting right there on those rocks. They looked like themselves, but different somehow." "Different how?" Theo asked, scanning the water. "I couldn't see clearly, but their skin, it seemed to shine in the moonlight. And they moved so gracefully when they went back into the water, like they belonged there." Later, as they warmed up in their room, Liv described everything she had seen. Theo listened without interrupting, no longer questioning her sanity or her sightings. "You believe me now?" she asked when she finished. "I believe something impossible is happening," he answered carefully. "And whatever it is, we're going to face it together." As dawn broke, they received an email from the forensic lab with more results. The DNA from the footprints showed even more startling anomalies. Genetic changes that shouldn't be possible. "It's as if their DNA is rewriting itself," the scientist wrote. "These mutations would typically take thousands of years of evolution." Liv stared out the window at the morning tide rolling in. "We need to go back to that cave," she said. "Today." Whatever was happening to her children, the answers lay beneath the waves, in the darkness of that underwater cave. She just hoped they weren't too late to bring Mira and Finn back to the world they'd been born into, before they became something else entirely. But the sea had other plans. A storm rolled in overnight, churning the waters around the island into a frenzy of white-capped waves. Their planned dive was cancelled. "Too dangerous," Rowan explained, pointing to the angry clouds on the horizon. "We'd be risking our lives." Theo paced their small hotel room, as restless as the gathering storm. "We need to do something. We can't just sit here." Liv's phone chimed with a notification. Another post from the mysterious account. A photo of dark storm clouds over water with the caption, "Power in the storm." "We swim deeper now." They showed it to Rowan, who frowned. "The legends mention this too. They say the sea children gain strength from storms, that they can swim to places impossible to reach in calm waters." Where would they go during a storm? "Like this?" Liv asked. Rowan considered this. "Somewhere sheltered but near water, maybe with supplies." The answer came 3 hours later when Liv's phone rang. Detective Mercer's voice was tight with excitement. "There's been another break-in at a remote facility," he told her. "This time at the Klukwan weather station, about 40 miles up the coast. Security footage shows 2 small figures moving at unusual speed. Items were taken from the food storage." "What was taken?" Liv asked, already knowing the answer. "Cookies. The same brand as before." Within an hour, they were in a police car, racing through the driving rain to the weather station. The small cinder block building sat atop a cliff overlooking the churning ocean. Wind lashed rain against the windows as they hurried inside. The lone worker at the station, a middle-aged man named Jenkins, led them to the security office. "I thought it was animals at first," he explained, pulling up the grainy footage. "But then I saw this. On the screen, 2 blurry shapes moved through the storage room with fluid, quick movements. They were unmistakably child-sized, but moved with an unnatural speed." "And listen to this," Jenkins added, turning up the volume. Through the static of the security audio came a sound that made Liv's heart skip. Children's laughter, but with a strange echoing quality, like voices underwater. "They took cookies, nothing else," Jenkins said. "Left these behind." He showed them small, wet handprints on the storeroom shelves. Liv knelt to examine them, her fingers hovering just above the marks. "They're webbed," she whispered. Indeed, a thin membrane connected the spaces between each finger, like the beginning of flippers. The forensic team arrived an hour later. They took samples of the handprints, photographed and measured them. One scientist shook her head in bewilderment. "These don't match any known marine mammal," she said. "The basic structure is human, but with adaptations I've never seen before." "It's them," Liv insisted. "It's Mira and Finn." The scientist looked skeptical. "Mrs. Dawson, I understand your hope, but these prints suggest something else." "Run the DNA," Theo said firmly. "Compare it to our children's samples. You'll see." Outside, the storm intensified. Rain lashed the windows as thunder boomed overhead. Liv stared out at the turbulent sea below the cliff. "They're out there in this," she said softly. "Swimming? In water that would kill a normal person." Jenkins approached hesitantly. There's something else you should see." He led them to a small storage closet filled with old equipment and weather logs. On the back wall, barely visible in the dim light, were markings, the same wavy lines and stick figures they'd seen in the underwater cave. "I found these this morning," Jenkins explained. "They weren't here yesterday." Theo touched the marks gently. "They were here, in this room." For the next 3 hours, they searched the station and surrounding area, finding nothing more. The storm made it impossible to check the shoreline below the cliff. As darkness fell, they gathered in the station's small break room. The forensic, Team had packed up their samples for testing. Detective Mercer was arranging for overnight accommodations. The storm showed no signs of letting up. "What happens now?" Theo asked, his voice hollow with exhaustion. "We wait for the storm to pass," Detective Mercer replied, "then resume the search." "They won't be here when the storm ends," Liv said with quiet certainty. "They'll be gone by morning." No one argued with her. That night, as wind howled around the weather station, Liv couldn't sleep. She sat by the window, watching lightning illuminate the churning sea below. "What's happening to you?" she whispered, as if her children might somehow hear her across the storm. "What are you becoming?" A particularly bright flash of lightning lit up the cliffside, and for a brief moment, Liv saw something that made her gasp. Two small figures climbing the sheer rock face below the station, moving with impossible agility through the pounding rain. She grabbed her raincoat and ran outside, ignoring Theo's confused shouts behind her. The wind nearly knocked her off her feet as she struggled to the cliff edge. Lightning flashed again, illuminating the rocky slope below. The figures were gone. Theo caught up to her, wrapping his arms around her to keep her from being blown over. "I saw them climbing up," she shouted over the howling wind. "They were right there." Together, they searched the cliff edge with flashlights, rain pelting their faces. Nothing. As they turned to go back inside, Liv's light caught something on the ground. Small puddles forming perfect footprints, leading not toward the station, but away, into the forest behind it. "Theo, look!" They followed the tracks until they vanished at a small stream that ran down to the ocean. On a rock beside the water lay two soaked stuffed animals. A worn otter that had been Mira's constant companion since she was 3, and a tattered blue shark that Finn had insisted on bringing on the cruise. Liv picked them up with trembling hands. Both toys were drenched but intact, as if carefully placed rather than abandoned. "They're leaving us breadcrumbs," Theo said, his voice cracking. "They want us to follow them." Back at the station, they showed the stuffed animals to Detective Mercer. For the first time, the detective looked truly shaken. "This changes things," he admitted. "We need a full team here at First Light." By morning, the storm had passed, leaving a changed landscape in its wake. Trees down, debris scattered, the air strangely still after the night's chaos. And as Liv had predicted, there was no sign of the twins. No more footprints, no more laughter on the security recordings. They had come during the storm and vanished. With it, the only evidence of their visit was the webbed handprints, the strange markings, and the stuffed animals they had left behind, like a message to their parents. The DNA results came back that afternoon, confirming what Liv already knew. The samples matched Mira and Finn, but with continuing mutations that the scientists couldn't explain. "It's as if their cellular structure is adapting to a marine environment," the lead scientist said, bewilderment in her voice. "But the rate of change is unprecedented." Liv held the stuffed otter and shark close to her chest. "They're trying to tell us something. These weren't just their favorite toys. They mean something more." That night, Liv dreamed of her children swimming through dark waters, their legs fused together, their skin shimmering with a blue-green light, calling to her from the depths, "Follow us, Mom. See our new world." She woke with tears on her face and a new determination. Whatever her children had become, they were still her children. And they were leading her somewhere. She just had to be brave enough to follow. The next morning, Liv received an unexpected email. The subject line read, "About your children's transformation." The sender was Dr. Maya Chen, a marine biologist at the Oceanic Research Institute in Seattle. Liv had never heard of her. "I've been following your case," Dr. Chen wrote. "The DNA results from the weather station were shared within the scientific community. I believe I can help explain what's happening to your children." Liv showed the email to Theo. "Could be a crank," he warned, but called the institute anyway. Dr. Chen was real, a respected scientist specializing in deep-sea adaptations. 2 days later, they sat in Dr. Chen's office in Seattle, surrounded by tanks of strange, glowing fish and models of deep-sea creatures. "What I'm about to tell you will sound impossible," Dr. Chen began, her eyes serious behind round glasses. "But the evidence suggests your children are undergoing a transformation that has been documented only a handful of times throughout history." She pulled out an old leather-bound book and opened it to a page with a yellowed newspaper clipping. From 1887, "Children lost at sea return as strange creatures." The first recorded case was in 1823, off the coast of Ireland, Dr. Chen explained. 2 brothers disappeared from a fishing boat. 3 months later, fishermen reported seeing boys swimming alongside their boats, diving to impossible depths and breathing underwater. She showed them more cases from around the world: Norway in 1902, Japan in 1955, Brazil in 1978. Always children, always near certain deep-water trenches, always changing in the same way. The progression appears consistent, Dr. Chen continued. First, increased lung capacity. Then, changes to the skin and webbing between fingers and toes. Later, adaptations of the eyes to see in low light. Finally, more dramatic changes to the lower body and internal organs. "Are you saying they're becoming mermaids?" Theo asked incredulously. Dr. Chen winced at the term. "Not exactly. What they're becoming doesn't match any of our folklore. They remain partly human, but adapt to survive in the deep ocean. Whatever causes this transformation seems to target only children, and only in specific geographic locations." "Can it be reversed?" Liv asked, her voice barely above a whisper. The scientist's hesitation was answer enough. In the few documented cases, the children never returned to fully human form. "But," she added quickly, "we know so little. Your case is the first in the modern era where we have DNA samples and tracking capabilities." Dr. Chen showed them to her research lab, where a large screen displayed footage taken by deep-sea drones. This was captured last month near the coordinates posted on that Instagram account. The grainy video showed 2 small figures swimming at what must have been several hundred feet below the surface. They moved with incredible grace, faster than human swimmers, diving and twirling through the darkness. "They're swimming at depths and pressures that would kill an ordinary human," Dr. Chen explained. "Without specialized equipment, a normal person would be crushed at that depth." "But how?" Theo asked. "How is this possible?" "I don't know," Dr. Chen admitted. "Science doesn't yet have an explanation. All I can tell you is that whatever they are now, they're adapting to survive in the ocean." Theo stormed out of the lab, overwhelming emotion visible on his face. Liv stayed, desperate for more information. "In the other cases," she asked hesitantly, "did the children ever communicate with their families?" Dr. Chen nodded. "Yes, though, in limited ways. They left objects on beaches, created markings. In one case from the 1950s, a transformed child actually wrote letters that washed ashore in bottles." "And did they seem happy?" Liv couldn't stop the question. "From all accounts, yes. The reports consistently describe the children as appearing playful, energetic, and curious. They don't seem distressed by their transformation." On the flight, Back to Alaska, Theo remained silent. Liv could feel him pulling away again, unable to accept the impossible reality of what was happening to their children. "You think I'm crazy to keep pursuing this," she said finally. "Not crazy," he replied quietly. "But maybe cruel." "Cruel? How?" Theo gestured helplessly. "What if they don't want to be rescued? What if forcing them back to our world would be like forcing a butterfly back into its cocoon?" The thought had never occurred to Liv. She'd been so focused on getting her children back that she hadn't considered they might not want to return. When they reached Juneau, Detective Mercer met them with news. An old lighthouse keeper named Desmond has been reporting sightings of your children for weeks. Claims they swim near his lighthouse every evening at dusk. Desmond's lighthouse stood on a rocky point 30 miles from where the cruise ship had been when the twins disappeared. The old man greeted them at the door, unsurprised by their arrival. "Been expecting you," he said, leading them inside the whitewashed tower. "They told me you'd come." "They?" Liv asked sharply. "Mira and Finn spoke to you?" "Not with words," Desmond replied. "But I've been watching them. They've been watching me too." He showed them logbooks dating back decades, each keeper recording sightings of strange figures in the water. Some pages included crude sketches of children with webbed hands and elongated legs. "You're not the first parents to come looking," Desmond said gently. "The sea takes a child every generation or so. Some return partly to land. Most stay below." "And you've seen our children?" Theo asked, his skepticism obvious. Desmond nodded. "Every evening this week. They're not exactly children anymore," he explained. "They're becoming something the sea created." As the sun began to set, Desmond led them to the observation deck. "Watch there," he pointed to a cluster of rocks about 50 yards offshore. "They always come at dusk." The minutes stretched painfully as the sun sank toward the horizon. Liv began to think the old man was just another dead end. Then Theo gasped, pointing. "There!" Two heads broke the surface near the rocks. Dark hair, slicked back from faces that were still recognizably Mira and Finn. They swam with effortless grace, circling the rocks. "Mira! Finn!" Liv called, her voice carrying across the water. The twins paused, turning to look in their direction. For a breathtaking moment, they stared directly at their parents. Finn raised a webbed hand in what might have been a wave. Then, as quickly as they had appeared, they slipped beneath the surface and were gone. "They'll be back tomorrow," Desmond said, as if children transforming into sea creatures was the most natural thing in the world. They always returned to the lighthouse. Liv stood frozen, tears streaming down her face. She had seen her children, alive, changed, but undeniably them. Beside her, Theo was crying too. "What do we do now?" he whispered. Liv had no answer. For the first time since the twins disappeared, she wondered if bringing them back was even possible or right. All she knew was that she wouldn't stop until she could hold them again, even if just to say goodbye. Liv and Theo moved into the small caretaker's cottage beside the lighthouse. Desmond seemed pleased with the company, sharing his simple meals and endless stories of the sea. "Been keeping this lighthouse for 38 years, he told them. "Seen things most folks wouldn't believe. Your children aren't the first to be called by the deep, and they won't be the last." Each evening at dusk, they would climb to the observation deck and watch as Mira and Finn appeared near the offshore rocks. Sometimes the twins would swim in playful circles. Other times, they would simply float, watching the lighthouse. "They're getting braver," Desmond noted on the fourth evening. "Coming closer than before." It was true. Each day the twins ventured nearer to the shore. Yet they always vanished when anyone tried to approach them. During the days, Liv pored over Desmond's old logbooks, searching for patterns or clues. The entries stretched back more than a century, each lighthouse keeper recording their observations of sea children in faded ink. One entry from 1924 caught her attention. The girl from last summer returned. She left a gift on the rocks, a métite, strange pearl that glows in darkness. Her mother came searching again. Should I give her the pearl? Would it only bring more grief? Desmond, Liv called. What happened to the glowing pearl mentioned here? The old man looked up from his chess game with Theo. It's still here. All the gifts are kept in the lighthouse treasury. He led them to a small room at the base of the tower. Inside stood an old sea chest, its wood darkened with age. Desmond unlocked it with a key he wore around his neck. Inside were dozens of strange objects, shells that spiraled in impossible patterns, stones that seemed to shift color in the light, and coral formations shaped like tiny human figures. Gifts from the sea children over the years, Desmond explained. Some given directly to lighthouse keepers, others left on the shore. At the bottom of the chest lay a pearl the size of a marble, emitting a soft blue-green glow. Desmond picked it up carefully. This one's special. It's said that whoever holds it can hear the thoughts of those who've gone below. Liv reached for it, but Desmond pulled back. Not yet. There's a right time for everything. The sea teaches patience. That night, Liv couldn't sleep. She slipped out of the cottage and walked along the shore, the full moon casting silver light across the quiet water. A movement caught her eye. Something sliding out of the waves onto a flat rock about 20 yards offshore. Heart pounding, she crept closer, staying in the shadows. Mira sat perched on the rock, her legs dangling in the water. Even from a distance, Liv could see how her daughter had changed. Her skin had a faint blue shimmer in the moonlight. Her fingers were clearly webbed now. Her eyes, when she turned to look out at the horizon, seemed larger, reflecting light like a cat's. Mira appeared to be waiting for something. Or someone. Minutes later, Finn's head popped up beside the rock. He whispered something to his sister, his voice carrying across the water with that strange underwater quality. Liv couldn't make out the words, but she heard Mira's reply clearly. She's watching us. I can feel her. Mira turned her head slowly, looking directly at the spot where Liv stood in the shadows. For a breathtaking moment, mother and daughter locked eyes across the distance. "Mom!" Mira called, her voice like water over stones. Livy stepped forward, unable to speak through her tears. She raised a hand in greeting, afraid any sudden movement might send the twins fleeing. Finn poked his head farther out of the water. "We can't stay long," he called. "It hurts to breathe the air now." "Please," Liv managed to say. "Please don't go. I've been searching for so long." "We know," Mira said. "We've been watching you." Can you come home?" Liv asked, already knowing the answer. Both twins shook their heads. "We're different now," Finn explained. "We belong to the deep." "What happened on the ship?" Liv asked. "How did this start?" Mira glanced at the horizon, where the faintest glow suggested approaching dawn. The door appeared in our cabin after we came back from swimming. A door that hadn't been there before. It opened onto water, but not regular water. We could breathe in it, Finn added. It felt like flying. "We didn't mean to stay away so long," Mira said, "but time moves differently below, and our bodies started changing so quickly." A sound like distant bells seemed to ripple through the water. Both twins turned toward it. "We have to go," Finn said urgently. "The tide is turning." "Will you come back?" Liv asked desperately. "Tomorrow night," Mira promised. "Bring Dad, and ask Desmond for the pearl." They slipped into the water with barely a ripple. Liv watched the spot where they had disappeared until the first rays of dawn broke over the horizon. When she returned to the cottage, she found Theo and Desmond at the kitchen table, worry etched on their faces. "You saw them," Desmond said, not a question. Liv nodded, still dazed from the encounter. "They spoke to me. They're coming back tomorrow night, and they asked for the pearl." Desmond's weathered face broke into a smile. "Then it's time. They've chosen to bridge the worlds." He explained that some of the sea children chose to maintain connections with the land. Others disappeared forever into the depths. The pearl allows communication. Thoughts and feelings shared across the divide of water and air. It's rare for them to offer such a gift to their families. Your children must love you very much. The next day crawled by with agonizing slowness. At sunset, all three stood on the shore, waiting. Desmond placed the glowing pearl in Liv's palm, closing her fingers around it. "Hold it tight when they appear," he instructed. "Keep your mind open." The moon rose, full and bright. The tide reached its highest point, and then they came. Not just Mira and Finn, but a dozen other figures, children of various ages, all with the same shimmering skin and large reflective eyes. They formed a semicircle in the shallow water, watching. Mara and Finn swam forward, stopping where the waves gently lapped the shore. "We brought friends," Finn said, his voice stronger than the night before. "They're like us. Some have been below for hundreds of years." Liv clutched the pearl, feeling it, warm in her hand. Suddenly, her mind filled with images and feelings not her own. Joy, freedom, the sensation of diving to impossible depths, ancient ruins on the ocean floor, a community of transformed children learning and playing in a world humans had never seen. She gasped, tears streaming down her face as she experienced fragments of her children's new existence. Beside her, Theo took her free hand, his expression showing he felt it too. "This is what we wanted you to understand," Mira said softly. "We're not lost. We're just living somewhere else now." For the first time since the twins disappeared, Liv felt the crushing weight of grief begin to lift. Her children were alive, different, changed, but alive. And in their own strange way, they were happy. It wasn't an ending she could have ever imagined. But as she stood on the shore, the pearl glowing between her and Theo's joined hands, she realized it might be enough. Not goodbye after all, just a new way of staying connected across the division of two worlds. For the next week, Liv and Theo met with the twins each night at the shore. Sometimes they would talk for hours, the children half submerged in the shallows, explaining their new world. Other times, they would simply sit in silence, holding the pearl between them, sharing thoughts and feelings that words couldn't express. Finn showed less interest in these meetings than Mira. "He's adapting faster," Mira explained. "It's harder for him to remember being human." The changes in their children were becoming more pronounced. Their eyes had grown larger, with a reflective quality that made them shine in darkness. The webbing between their fingers now extended halfway up to their knuckles. Gills had formed on the sides of their necks, fluttering gently when they spoke. "Does it hurt?" Theo asked once, watching the gills open and close. "Only when we're out of water too long," Finn replied. "Like your lungs would hurt if you tried to breathe water." They learned that a community of transformed children lived in an underwater cave system that extended for miles beneath the sea floor. Some had been there for centuries, never aging beyond childhood. They had created their own society with its own rules and customs, all centered around the rhythm of tides and currents. "We have teachers," Mira explained, "children who've been below for hundreds of years. They know things humans have forgotten." Exactly 9 months to the day after the twins had vanished from the cruise ship, Liv woke to urgent knocking at the ETO cottage door. Desmond stood on the porch, his weathered face tight with excitement. "Something's washed up on the shore," he said. "You need to see it." Liv followed him down to the beach, where other locals had already gathered around an object. Near the waterline, as she pushed through the crowd, her heart nearly stopped. It was Mira's small pink suitcase, the one that had gone missing with her on the cruise. The local police arrived quickly, cordoning off the area. Detective Mercer, who had remained in Alaska to oversee the case, examined the suitcase carefully before allowing Liv to approach. "It's definitely hers," Liv confirmed, touching the unicorn sticker on the handle, a souvenir from their trip to the zoo last summer. When they opened the suitcase, they found the twins' clothes inside, neatly folded but caked with salt, and beneath the clothes lay a water-damaged notebook. Liv opened it with trembling hands. The pages were warped from water, but still legible. It contained writing in Mira's handwriting, though somehow different. More flowing, like water rippling. Across a page, "We're okay, Mom. We're different now. We can breathe below. We can swim forever. Don't be sad." The next pages contained drawings of underwater scenes, strange rock formations, forests of kelp, and what appeared to be buildings carved into cliff walls. The final page had a crude map drawn in what looked like dark blue ink, with an X marked in a remote cove about 10 miles from the lighthouse. The police sent samples of the ink for testing. The results came back that evening. It was similar to squid ink, but contained human DNA markers matching the twins. "They wrote this," Detective Mercer said, his voice filled with wonder, "after they changed. And they want us to go to this cove," Liv said, studying the map. "But why now? We've been meeting them every night. Why send this message in such a dramatic way?" "Maybe it's not for you," Desmond suggested, tapping the X on the map. "The marked spot is where the highest tide of the year will reach in 3 days' time. It happens only once annually, when the moon's pull is strongest." That night, the twins didn't appear at their usual meeting place. The next night, they were absent again. By the third night, Liv and Theo were frantic with worry. "Something's wrong," Liv insisted. "They've never missed 3 nights in a row." Desmond studied the tide charts and lunar calendar. "Nothing's wrong," he said. "They're preparing." "Preparing for what?" "The highest tide. It's tomorrow night," he pointed to the map in the notebook. "That's when you need to be at the marked cove." The next day, news crews descended on the lighthouse after word leaked about the mysterious suitcase. Scientists, skeptics, and the curious crowded the shore, hoping for a glimpse of the sea children that had now made headlines worldwide. Theo hired a local fisherman to take them to the marked cove that evening, away from the crowds. As the sun began to set, they anchored in the small, crescent-shaped bay. The beach was narrow, rocky, and completely empty. "Are you sure this is the right place?" Theo asked, checking the map against their location. "Positive," Liv replied. "This matches exactly." They rowed ashore in a small dinghy, the pearl clutched tightly in Liv's hand. As darkness fell, the tide began to rise, creeping higher up the beach than seemed natural. "The strongest tide of the year," Desmond explained, watching. the water with knowing eyes, when the boundary between worlds is thinnest. They waited as the moon rose, full and bright, casting silver light across the water. The tide continued to rise until it reached their feet, then their ankles. "Nothing's happening," Theo said, anxiety edging his voice. "Wait," Liv whispered, feeling the pearl grow warm in her palm. The water around their legs began to glow with a soft blue-green light. The same bioluminescence they had seen in the twins' eyes, now spreading through the water like liquid starlight. Something was moving beneath the surface, approaching the shore. Not just two shapes, but many. Dozens of shimmering forms gliding through the illuminated water, watching them from just below the surface with curious, luminous eyes. Liv stepped forward, drawn by an instinct she couldn't explain. The Aititi pearl in her hand pulsed with light, matching the rhythm of the glowing water. "They're here," she whispered. "All of them." And as the tide reached its highest point, breaking over a beach that had been dry for 364 days of the year, the water parted, and the children of the sea rose to meet them. Mira and Finn emerged first, walking out of the water with graceful, fluid movements. Behind them came others, children of different ages, all with the same shimmering skin, large reflective eyes, and webbed hands. Some appeared to have been underwater for years, others for centuries, their transformations more complete. In the moonlight, Liv could see how much her own children had changed. Their skin had a faint blue shimmer. Their fingers and toes were fully webbed now. Their eyes were larger, with a reflective quality like deep-sea creatures. Yet she could still see Mira and Finn in their faces, in the way they moved, in the smiles they gave her. "You came," Mira said, her voice a whisper mixed with the sound of waves. "Of course we came," Liv replied, tears streaming down her face. "We'll always come when you call us." The twins approached, moving differently on land now, as if gravity was an unfamiliar burden. They hugged their parents with cool, damp arms. Liv held them tightly, feeling the strange flutter of gills at their necks, the smooth texture of their transformed skin. "We can only stay until midnight," Finn explained, "when the tide begins to recede." "Why did you bring us here?" Theo asked, his voice breaking with emotion. "Why the suitcase? The map?" The twins exchanged glances with the other sea children, who had formed a semicircle on the beach, watching curiously. "We wanted you to understand," Mira said, "to see us one last time as we are now, before we swim deeper." "Deeper?" Liv's heart clenched with sudden fear. An older boy stepped forward, his transformation more advanced than the twins. His legs seemed fused together, his skin covered in fine, iridescent scales. "I'm Noah," he said, his voice carrying the same underwater quality as the twins. "I've been below for 73 years. I'm one of the guides for newly transformed children." He explained that the sea children lived in an ancient underwater civilization that had existed for thousands of years. Some were born of the sea, but others, like Mira and Finn, were chosen. "Chosen? How?" Theo demanded. "The doorways appear to certain children," Noah explained, "on ships that pass over the deepest trenches, under specific moons. Children who are curious, who are drawn to water, who are ready for a different life." "We didn't disappear by accident," Finn said. "We found a hidden doorway in our cabin on the cruise ship. It appeared in the wall after we came back from swimming. It looked like a round window at first," Mira added. "But when we touched it, it opened into water. Not regular water. It shimmered like the pearl. We could breathe in it. It felt like we were being invited somewhere special." "We only meant to explore for a little while," Finn continued. "But once we went through, Time felt different, and our bodies started changing so quickly. Noah nodded. The transformation begins immediately. After a few hours in our world, returning becomes difficult. Can it be reversed? Theo asked, the question they'd been afraid to voice. The sea children looked at each other, their luminous eyes reflecting the moonlight. No, Noah said gently. Once the change begins, it continues. But it's not a curse. It's another way of being. He explained that sea children never aged beyond childhood. They could live for centuries, exploring depths no human had ever reached, learning from the ancient knowledge preserved in underwater libraries, and swimming with creatures humans had never named. We've been taking curious children for centuries, Noah said. Usually, 1 or 2 each generation. They become part of our community. Some maintain connections with the surface world. Others prefer to swim deeper, where even we rarely go. And that's what you want, Liv asked her children, her heart breaking even as she struggled to understand. To swim deeper? Mira took her mother's hands. We're happy, Mom. We've discovered amazing things. There are ruins of ancient civilizations down there, libraries full of knowledge, creatures that glow in the dark. We can swim faster than dolphins and dive deeper than submarines. But we missed you, Finn added. That's why we kept leaving clues. We wanted you to know we were okay. They gave Liv and Theo a pearl-like stone that glowed with bioluminescence, similar to the one Desmond had given them, but larger, more brilliant. When you hold this and stand by any ocean at midnight, we'll know, Finn explained. And we'll try to come, or at least send a message. We won't be able to visit like this again until next year's highest tide, Mira said. But we'll be watching. We'll know if you're near the water. As midnight approached, the sea children grew restless, glancing at the water with longing. The Ida tide had reached its peak and would soon begin to recede. It's time, Noah said gently. Liv couldn't bear it. Please, she begged. Can't you stay just a little longer? There's so much more to say. Our bodies aren't made for land anymore, Mira explained, her gills fluttering with effort. It hurts to breathe the air for too long. With tears streaming down her face, Liv hugged her children one last time, trying to memorize the feel of them in her arms. We'll come back next year, Finn promised. And the year after that. And we'll be here, Theo assured them, his own voice, thick with emotion. Every highest tide, for as long as we live. As the ocean began to recede, the sea children returned to the water. Mira and Finn were the last to go, backing away slowly, their eyes never leaving their parents. We love you, Mira called. We love you too, Liv and Theo answered together. Always. The twins slipped into the waves with barely a splash. For a moment, their faces were visible beneath the surface, looking back at their parents with their large, luminous eyes. Then they were gone, swimming away with incredible speed, following the other children into the depths. Liv and Theo stood on the shore long after the last ripple had faded. The bioluminescent pearl clutched between their joined hands. Through it, they could sense faint impressions, joy, freedom, and a love that stretched across the boundary between worlds. They understood now. Their children weren't victims of a tragedy. They were explorers who had found another way of being, ambassadors, between the world of air and the world of water. The twins hadn't revealed everything about that night on the cruise ship, how they had found the hidden doorway, why they had chosen to go through it, whether they were really given a choice at all. These questions might never be fully answered. But as Liv and Theo walked back to the boat where Desmond waited, the cyan pearl glowing softly between them, they carried a new understanding. Their family hadn't been destroyed. It had been transformed, stretched across two realms, and somewhere deep in the ocean, Mira and Finn Dawson were swimming with incredible freedom, part of a world humans had never truly discovered. They were different now, but they were still their children, and that would have to be enough. That was the end of this story. I hope you enjoyed this emotional journey of loss, discovery, and acceptance. Where are you listening from? I'd love to know which part of the world this story reached. If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe to the channel for more such interesting stories. Don't forget to share with your friends and family to spread kindness and awareness. Thank you for listening, and I'll be back soon with another tale that will capture your imagination.